The story opens as a maid, Ilse, humbly introduces herself, bowing before the plump, bedridden man, declaring her duty to serve him, His Highness, Prince Ludwig. He stares at her, visibly confused, slowly realizing the horrifying truth. He has reincarnated as the protagonist of Revolt of the Ugly Orc, a degenerate eroge he used to play. In this grim RPG, the Ugly Crown Prince, Ludwig von Balderberg, leads a brutal campaign, subjugating royal heirs, female warriors, and even elf maidens. Ilse nervously awaits his response, but he's consumed by dread. The game is infamous for its despair-filled endings. Even the true route ends in execution after raising kingdoms. The others offer only rebellion, defeat, or suicide. Overwhelmed, he hides his face in his hands, realizing one brutal fact: the survival rate is absolute zero. He also remembers that Ilse is one of the main heroines, Ilse Hildebrandt, the tragic daughter of a fallen viscount, who, in the game, was eventually turned into Ludwig's slave. Now seeing her for the first time, he's shocked, realizing this is their first meeting. Struggling to stay calm, he asks her for the current date and time. Ilse politely informs him it's March 17th, year 270 of the imperial calendar. That stuns him even more. This is 5 years before the main story even begins. In the original game, Ilse was already enslaved during the tutorial scene, right at the start. Now realizing he has 5 extra years, he becomes quietly excited. He can try to change the story's tragic outcome. When she humbly asks if he has any orders for her, he nervously declines and instead praises her for her dedication. Ilse, surprised yet pleased, blushes at how kindly the Crown Prince is speaking to her. Having never talked to a cute girl in his previous life, he's overwhelmed with anxiety. When Ilse politely reminds him that she's his maid and asks him to assign her a task, he instead asks her to leave him alone for now. Confused, she wonders if she did something wrong. Flustered, he quickly reassures her, explaining that he's simply grateful someone as kind as her is serving someone as undeserving as him. Ilse softly apologizes for the misunderstanding and calmly exits the room. He sadly recalls the day when Princess Sophia Marie de Belva, his fiancée since age 13 and a princess from a neighboring kingdom, angrily rejected his marriage proposal, calling him a hideous monster and declaring that she hated him. Her selfish and cruel remarks deeply wounded him, as he had always been a shy and quiet boy. Worse, she spread rumors claiming Ludwig had inherited his father's cruel and depraved nature. As a result, her father canceled the engagement. When Ludwig learned of the rumors, he was devastated and locked himself away in his room. To comfort him, the Emperor gifted him Ilse, not as a person but as a toy to vent on. Whenever Ludwig got angry, he was allowed to break her however he pleased. Now remembering this, he realizes that in his previous life, he had felt sympathy for Ludwig's situation. Having never been bullied or rejected himself, through elementary, middle, high school, or even university. He had never even spoken to a girl. But now, determined not to repeat the same darkness, he vows never to touch Ilse, hoping this one change might lead to a better future. However, he also recalls another serious obstacle. The Empire's relentless push for war wasn't just Ludwig's doing, it was the Emperor's ambition. Even if Ludwig wanted peace, the Emperor would still drive the invasion forward, so he considers removing the Emperor, hoping it might be the key to rewriting the story's tragic course. But as he lies down in despair, he knows the harsh truth. If the Emperor, Ludwig's strongest backer, disappears, the noble factions will likely kill him immediately. Lying helplessly, not knowing what to do next, he catches a glimpse of his bloated, unattractive face in the mirror. It strikes him then, the first step is to lose weight. After all, he is the son of a strong and handsome emperor. If he becomes more presentable, maybe the heroines won't hate him and he can steer away from the bad endings. Inspired by this single realistic goal, he finds a small spark of hope. Get fit, and start changing the fate he once thought was unchangeable. The next day, Emperor Otto von Balderberg, holding a girl in each arm, asks Ludwig casually whether he didn't like that girl, as he recalls the Emperor's nature, a harsh tyrant, just like in the game, who only shows affection toward his son. He quickly denies it, admitting instead that he actually likes Ilse. He remembers that she comes from a fallen noble family, and to restore their status, her parents accepted the Emperor's command for her to serve Ludwig as his toy. But now he realizes, if Ilse ever finds out he dislikes her, it might completely shatter her dedication and resolve. Meanwhile, the Emperor proudly advises him not to get too attached to her, reminding him there are many other girls for him. Then, noticing a certain spark in Ludwig's expression, the Emperor taps his head and angrily shouts about the kingdom of Belga and all the other nations that wronged him. The Emperor promises that they will all suffer under his iron wrath, and that Ludwig too will one day take his revenge. With a laugh he walks off with the girls. Meanwhile, Ludwig silently enters his room, smiling to himself, thinking how the Emperor still believes he is truly his son, when in reality he's not the real Ludwig at all. But suddenly he clutches his head and bends down, wincing in pain as if his heart is being torn apart. At that exact moment, Els rushes in with clear concern and quickly asks if he's all right. A few minutes later he's lying on his bed, and she's sitting beside him with teary eyes, visibly relieved as he regains consciousness. Confused by her deep concern, he asks why she's so worried about him. She calmly responds that he is her true master. Realizing she's just like the loyal dog from the game, he smiles and assures her that he's fine, sincerely thanking her. In response, she surprises him by admitting that he seems completely different from the rumors she had heard. After feeling a bit better, he gently allows her to step away. She humbly bows and replies that if he cannot rest properly in her presence, then she will excuse herself. As she leaves the room, he immediately looks up with determination to start doing squats. But the moment he tries, due to his heavy weight, he collapses to the ground like a deflated football. The next morning, Els serves him an enormous, fatty, and delicious breakfast. When he gently instructs her to serve only vegetables and smaller portions from tomorrow onward, she looks at him with deep concern, asking if he's feeling unwell. He calmly reassures her that he's fine. He just wants to lose some weight, which visibly shocks her. She repeats in disbelief, asking if he truly wants to slim down, and when he nods seriously, he then asks about her plans after breakfast. She hesitates for a moment, a little flustered, before asking for a bit of time. Realizing that she's carefully managing her response to avoid offending him, he clarifies that he actually wants her help with his weight loss training. Ilse immediately agrees, clearly happy and excited. Meanwhile, he quietly thinks to himself, having never had a relationship with a girl in his previous life, that he doesn't have the courage to ask someone as beautiful as Ilse for anything romantic. But his thoughts are interrupted when Ilse, looking confused, gently asks why he's requesting her help, since, as a prince and knight commander, it would make more sense for him to ask someone more professional. However, he knows well that she is highly skilled. Her family, the House of Hildebrandt, is a shadow clan known for assassination and covert missions. Among the heroines, Els stands out for her incredible speed and specializes in fast, multi-hit attacks, playing the role of a scout. So without hesitation, he lowers his head and sincerely asks her for help, because he truly wants to change himself. With a sad and discouraged look, he explains that even though he is a crown prince, Princess Sophia of the neighboring kingdom rejected him. No one pays attention to him, and he desperately wants to prove himself, especially to her. Understanding his true intentions, Els becomes deeply moved and humbly bows, promising to help him with her full effort, no matter the cost. He stands up with renewed excitement, firmly declaring that he will follow all of her instructions as he truly trusts her. She reassures him again and agrees to begin his training. However, when he thanks her by calling her name, she responds firmly and professionally, instructing him to address her as instructor and to reply only with "yes, ma'am" or a nod. Seeing his confused but willing agreement, she cheerfully leads him toward their first training location. Now standing together before a high balcony, she apologetically explains that the kind of deep fat he's carrying cannot be eliminated through normal exercise or dieting alone. It must either be cut away or compressed. She adds that this body modification technique has been passed down through her family. Still shocked, he hesitates, but she confidently urges him to just follow her guidance. Feeling determined and motivated to lose weight, he agrees to trust all of her methods. As he climbs up to the balcony, she suddenly tells him to jump off. He stares at her in disbelief. Without giving him time to think, she abruptly pushes him down. He screams in panic as he falls, but upon landing, he realizes he's completely unharmed. His thick body fat had absorbed the impact, and he lets out a sigh of relief. At that moment, she approaches with a smile, and after confirming he isn't injured, excitedly tells him to climb back up and do it again. When he cries out in disbelief, she reminds him, in a professional tone, that he promised to follow every instruction without question. With no other choice, he climbs back up and jumps again, repeating the process. Later, back in his room, he lies exhausted as she gives him a massage. Realizing she must be tired herself, he tells her she doesn't need to keep going, but she calmly informs him that proper body care is also an essential part of training. He feels nervous at how close she is, Then, with a hint of emotion, she asks if he's uncomfortable with her touch, reassuring him that she's only performing a duty assigned to her. He gently brushes off her concern, saying that romantic relationships should exist only between people in love, so she shouldn't worry about this. He thanks her and calls her instructor. Smiling warmly, she tells him there's no need to call her that anymore, since they're not in training at the moment. He can just use her name. Happy, he tells her to work him just as hard tomorrow. She nods with a cheerful smile. After 6 months, Ilse excitedly praises his slightly slimmed-down figure. However, he responds dejectedly, saying that despite all their training, he hasn't lost much weight at all. With a cheerful smile, she explains that their methods are focused on compressing fat into a denser form rather than just burning it off. To further compress his body fat, she instructs him to now climb up to the 3rd-floor balcony. As he scales the building, he's amazed at how easily she moves across the house. Ilse, still ahead of him, laughs and admits she has no real experience in this either. But reaching the balcony before him, she assures him he actually has more talent than she does. Without wasting a moment, she informs him about the next stage of training, then suddenly pushes him off the balcony again. Their training continues relentlessly. Then, a few months later, in the depths of winter, he becomes nervous when she instructs him to defeat a sea monster known as a Kelpie. It's a minor enemy from the early side quests in the game, but one that, if left undefeated, causes the heroines to suffer humiliating outcomes. Seeing his terrified expression, Ilse suddenly appears behind him with a teasing grin, joking that if he ends up getting caught, only his dignity will be at stake. Before he can react, she pushes him into the water and firmly instructs him not to float on the surface. Otherwise, he'll be caught easily. She commands him to dodge swiftly. Although he has no clue what he's doing, the moment he sees the Kelpie behind him, he instinctively dives to the other side of the water, while Ilse continues cheering him on from the shore. He does his best, but eventually gets caught. The Kelpie starts licking his face, bringing him to tears. Once it's over and he climbs out of the water, Ilse offers him a helping hand and praises his effort. But just then, an accident occurs, causing her to turn bright red with embarrassment and quickly shut her eyes. As the days pass, his weight begins to drop little by little. Now training with dual swords, he stays focused and determined. Watching from nearby, Ilse, concerned, suggests that a sword and shield combination might suit him better. He bows his head apologetically and explains, with quiet sincerity, that although he has access to many weapons, he believes dual swords are the best choice for defeating monsters, because he wants to become the strongest. Ilse notices that his goal has clearly changed from what it once was, but she genuinely feels happy for him. Then, with a firm tone, she tells him that if he truly wants to master dual swords, he'll need to train 3 times harder. From that moment on, he throws himself into intense training, leaping from 5th-floor balconies, dodging Kelpie attacks, and refining his dual sword technique. A year later, he's thrilled by the results. His body is finally in ideal shape. Ilse, just as excited, praises his transformation with joy. But then, her voice softens with a hint of sadness as she declares that her duty as his instructor, to help him slim down, is now complete. Startled, he quickly responds, insisting that he still hasn't mastered dual sword combat completely. After completing his training, Ludwig initially planned to distance himself from Ilse, but after spending an entire year with her, he feels emotionally attached and asks her to keep guiding him. When she asks if he truly wants that, he smiles and suggests they be a bit more casual now since they've spent a whole year as teacher and student. He asks her to call him Lua, musing that his name in his past life was Rui Nikaido. Understanding his feelings, she gently holds his hand and politely says she'll call him Prince Ludwig. He smiles, accepting it, and she promises to serve him with all her heart. A few days later, during his farewell party, Ludwig shows up dressed elegantly. Everyone is shocked and captivated by his transformation. Still, he doubts their admiration, thinking they might only pretend to like his new appearance. Wanting to avoid attention, he quietly hides away. Ilse approaches and asks why he's standing there alone. This party is for him. She urges him not to glare at everyone so coldly, since people already find him intimidating. Just then, the Emperor arrives with a wine glass in one hand and 2 girls at his side. He praises Ludwig's transformation and changed demeanor. Ludwig thanks him. The Emperor says, though he'll miss him, Ludwig must now attend the Royal Academy, which accepts nobles and royals from many nations. He urges him to become famous and make others bow to him. Then turning to Ilse, the Emperor proudly asks her to take care of Ludwig. She agrees respectfully. As the Emperor walks away, Ludwig apologizes for his father's rude behavior. Ilse calmly dismisses it, saying serving him is her only duty. Trying to change the subject, Ludwig asks if she'll come to the academy with him. Ilse happily agrees, promising to support him as his maid and classmate. Ludwig then thinks to himself that having a maid is fine, but since she's 2 years older, calling her a classmate might raise questions. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Ludwig changes into an elegant outfit. Looking at himself in the mirror, he feels impressed and humbled. Just a year ago, he never imagined he'd appear this stunning or confident. He recalls how his father had explained that the Imperial Academy accepts nobles and royals from across many nations. Ludwig thinks to himself that Sophia surely wouldn't show up here. After rejecting him and damaging diplomatic ties, she wouldn't be shameless enough to join the same academy. His thoughts are interrupted when Ilse calls out to him. As he turns and sees her in a breathtaking dress, he's momentarily stunned. When she walks closer and asks if he's all right, he quickly regains composure and compliments her, saying she looks amazing. A few minutes later, as they ride together in the royal carriage, she asks about the speech he'll be giving as the student representative. With a smile, he confidently says it's ready, but deep down, he's nervous about speaking in front of so many people. Ilse encourages him to be confident as a prince, and her words give him strength. Determined to avoid the game's bad ending, he promises her he'll do his best. Her bright smile shows she's happy to hear that. As they arrive at the Imperial Academy, the guards salute them. Stepping out of the carriage, Ludwig turns back and extends a hand to help Ilse down. She hesitates, clearly puzzled, and tells him not to. People might not like it. He winks and says she should relax. He's used to being mocked as a hideous orc anyway. But as he walks, noticing people staring at him and Ilse makes him nervous again. He worries that onlookers are judging the strange sight of a hideous orc walking beside a beautiful girl. Flustered, he quickly turns back, grabs her hand, and enthusiastically urges her to hurry into the entrance ceremony with him. But just then, he unintentionally bumps into a girl. He falls to the ground and quickly asks the girl if she's okay. But as she turns around, he freezes in shock. It's Sophie. Remembering how harshly she rejected him before, he's stunned to see her here, especially when the academy is supposed to accept only nobles. He wonders why she's attending after causing diplomatic tension. Still, trying to stay composed, he politely asks again if she's all right. She nods and then gently asks if she may hold his hand. He offers it, and she thanks him calmly as she stands. This polite response feels completely different from how cold she was in the past. Without a word, Ludwig suddenly grabs Ilse's hand and walks away, apologizing, saying they're in a hurry. As they hurry off, Ilse angrily asks about the girl. He tells her to calm down and then smirks, saying that Sophia didn't even recognize him as Prince Ludwig, proof his transformation is real. He recalls the pain of her rejection and grows quiet. Seeing tears form in his eyes, Ilse gently pulls him into a hug, encouraging him to let it out. Overwhelmed, he starts crying heavily. When he notices she's also tearing up, he smiles through his tears and tells her not to cry for him. She softly smiles and insists she isn't crying at all. Later at the ceremony, the Emperor finishes his speech by wishing all students success. The announcer then introduces the next speaker, Eleonora, daughter of the Empire's most powerful duke. With a cold, commanding tone, Eleonora congratulates the new students. Ludwig recognizes her immediately. She's one of the main heroines in the game. He thinks carefully. If he doesn't handle her well, she'll lead a coup mid-story, and if he tries to control her as a slave, it'll trigger the rebellion ending. He knows he must approach her wisely. His thoughts are cut off as her speech ends and his own name is called. Ilse encourages him as he stands up. Nervous but determined, Ludwig walks toward the stage, feeling everyone's eyes on him. Standing before the crowd with calm resolve, he addresses the crowd, revealing the isolation and prejudice he has endured, even within his own empire. His voice, though initially tense, grows stronger as he expresses his desire to be seen for who he truly is, not the monster imagined, but the person standing before them now. As he finishes and walks back to his seat, the atmosphere remains cold. The stares haven't softened, but something inside him has. Rather than feeling discouraged, he silently vows to shift those gazes through his own actions and reshape the narrative others have written for him. As Ludwig returns to his seat, Ilse claps excitedly, impressed by his heartfelt speech. Though he laughs, knowing most ignored him, her teasing remark about everyone having rotten ears brings a soft smile to his face. He responds lightheartedly, still holding hope that one day people will come to understand him. But their moment is cut short when they notice the other students rushing toward their classrooms. Panicked, they sprint after them. On the way, Ludwig is suddenly bumped aside by someone shouting for him to move. Irritated, he turns, only for a girl to step forward with a sinister smile, explaining it was her knight's fault. Ludwig freezes as he recognizes her, Natalia Silvestri, saint of the Minerva Holy Church from the neighboring Lathia Holy Kingdom, one of the main heroines in the game Revolt of the Ugly Orc. He recalls her future betrayal, where she destroys the kingdom of Belga and falsely blames the Empire, sparking global conflict. Despite knowing her treacherous role, he can't deny her enchanting appearance, silver hair, soft features, and graceful charm. Natalia introduces herself with warmth and friendliness. Ludwig politely returns the gesture, introducing himself as Crown Prince Ludwig. Her comment that he seems completely different from the rumors unsettles him, and when she suddenly hugs him, he stiffens. Though wary, he's momentarily stunned by her beauty. The moment breaks when Ilse, fuming, pulls them apart, while Natalia throws a playful flying kiss before leaving with a cheeky excuse. Watching his flustered expression, Ilse sharply asks if he likes Natalia. Ludwig immediately denies it, panicking at the idea. Deep down, he reminds himself that Natalia might abandon her saint title and lean toward a seductress role, just like in the game. He declares firmly that he's not interested in Natalia, only in Ilse. The scene shifts to the classroom. Their homeroom teacher, Matilda Naumann, introduces herself. With her military posture and stern presence, Ludwig instantly recalls her as a minor soldier character in the game. Relaxed that Sophie isn't in his class, he's puzzled to see Natalia waving at him cheerfully. Ilse, glaring, asks for permission to handle Natalia herself, but Ludwig quickly stops her before she causes a scene. His mind shifts to the last of the main heroines, Ophelia of Brynn, the fourth princess and the feared frenzied knight princess. Known in the game for her incredible attack power, second only to the final boss, she plays a vital role in mid to late game strategies. Though wary of her, Ludwig reminds himself that this is now reality, not a game, and decides not to involve himself with her storyline just yet. As the lecture ends, the teacher instructs everyone to rest in the dormitories. On their way out, Ludwig apologizes to Ilse for the trouble she faces because of him. With her usual smile, she brushes it off, reaffirming it as her duty. Watching her kindness, Ludwig internally vows to rewrite the game's bad ending and fully restore her lost honor. Grateful and happy, he promises to make her smile, and the sincerity in his words makes Ilse blush, softly thanking him. Just then, a guard respectfully approaches with an invitation from Lady Eleonora for the freshman welcome ball, a traditional event for royalty at the Imperial Academy. Knowing Eleonora is a potential threat seeking to take power from the Empire, Ludwig senses the true purpose of the gathering and chooses to attend with caution. Worried, he admits to Ilse that he doesn't know how to dance. Smiling, she takes the card from his hand and assures him not to worry, she will dance with him. When he hesitantly asks if she won't dance with anyone else, she firmly declares she would much rather share that moment with him. Relieved and grateful, Ludwig thanks her, a genuine warmth filling his heart. Ludwig and Ilse step into the ballroom, dressed in graceful elegance. Their refined appearance quickly draws attention. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Despite Ilse's reassuring presence, Ludwig feels his confidence falter. Surrounded by nobles, he begins to question whether he belongs here. Even Ilse, though close to his age, carries herself with the poise of someone far more mature. Feeling disheartened, he quietly admits to Ilse that perhaps he shouldn't have come. Ilse, puzzled, immediately dismisses the thought, reminding him gently that the party wouldn't exist without him. Her words stir a warmth in him, briefly lifting his spirits, until the music fades and Lady Eleonora steps forward, welcoming everyone with a poised smile and inviting them to enjoy the evening. As the crowd mingles but refrains from dancing, Ludwig grows confused. Ilse explains softly that everyone is waiting for him, the prince, to lead the first dance. She also warns that Professor Naumann and several Academy faculty members are watching closely, expecting him to fulfill his role. Flustered, Ludwig hesitantly asks Ilse to dance, and she gladly accepts. As they step onto the floor, he can't help but worry whether he's doing it right. Ilse, full of joy, gently reassures him. When he focuses too much on his footwork, she playfully tells him to look into her eyes instead, reminding him that it's proper etiquette. Though nervous that eye contact might make him mess up, she simply laughs and urges him to trust her. As he gazes into her eyes, Ludwig feels a pang of guilt. Such closeness, such warmth, is meant only for lovers. A sudden sense of unworthiness creeps over him. Wanting to pull away before crossing a line, he softly suggests they stop and reminds her there will be other chances to dance. Ilse, smiling and understanding, agrees. Thirsty and overwhelmed, Ludwig excuses himself to get a drink and gather his thoughts. But just as he begins to relax, his mood shatters. Sophie approaches with a smile and asks why he didn't invite her to dance. The sight of her stirs a storm inside him. He recalls how she once rejected him cruelly, labeling him a hideous orc and spreading vicious rumors that tarnished not just his name, but the Empire's reputation in foreign courts. And now, without shame, she casually invites him to dance as if none of that ever happened. He wants to speak up, to confront her, but something inside, perhaps the trauma left by the real Ludwig's experiences, holds him back. Before he can react, Sophie reaches for his hand. But she's stopped. Ilse steps forward, gripping Sophie's hand firmly. Her tone is sharp, her words clear. Tonight, Prince Ludwig dances only with her. Sophie, unfazed, mockingly questions if Ilse is just an attendant. But Ilse, holding Ludwig's hand protectively, stands tall, introducing herself not as a servant, but as someone who shields him with pride. She doesn't bow. She doesn't flinch. Anger burning beneath her composed expression, she makes it clear she won't let anyone belittle him again. Sophie continues her taunting with a cold smile, pointing out that Ludwig is royalty while Ilse is merely a maid, someone who has no right to share a dance with the prince. Her words sting with condescension. She escalates, feigning sorrow as she claims to be the true victim, hurt by the cruel slander surrounding Prince Ludwig, when all she did, she insists, was express a different opinion to prevent an unsuitable engagement. Then her tone sharpens. She mocks Ilse again, calling her personality dull, a girl from a declining noble house clinging to relevance. According to Sophie, Ilse is nothing more than a temporary toy for the prince, a placeholder until someone of true worth takes her place. But before she can say anything crueler, a glass of wine crashes against her face. Gasps echo through the hall as the liquid drips from Sophie's stunned expression. Ludwig, furious, stands with his hands still outstretched, his voice raised in raw anger. He reminds everyone, especially her, that 2 years ago she herself rejected him and publicly mocked him as a hideous orc. And now, after all that, she dares to insult Ilse, someone who stayed by his side, even when no one else would. Before the silence settles, Eleonora steps forward with practiced grace, her voice calm but firm. She suggests they stop causing a scene. With a hint of amusement in her tone, she notes that the crown prince has just doused a princess with wine and raised his voice at her. She chides him for not properly disciplining his subordinates, subtly pointing out that even a mere maid like Ilse dared to defy Princess Sophia. President Eleonora lowers her head, recalling the speech Ludwig gave during the entrance ceremony, the one where he declared he wanted everyone to see his true self. Now watching the scene unfold, she realizes, this is his true self, not some polished, restrained noble, but someone who refuses to stay silent when someone dear to him is hurt. Still burning with fury, Ludwig speaks out again. His voice cuts through the stunned crowd as he declares he's never been the type to stay silent when someone he treasures is insulted. Beside him, Ilse blushes deeply, her heart swelling with emotion, both flustered and moved. She looks up at him, eyes shining. But inside, Ludwig is conflicted. Though he stood up for her, guilt lingers for not protecting Ilse sooner. His earlier hopes of avoiding the game's bad endings now feel painfully fragile. With conviction in his eyes, Ludwig takes Ilse's hand and announces that if his honest self is unwelcome in this place, if people here would rather hide behind their titles while looking down on others, then he refuses to stay. He won't remain in a hall that tolerates hypocrisy and cruelty. With that, he turns away from the crowd. Still holding Ilse's hand, they exit together, calm and composed. Inside the royal carriage, silence falls at first. Ludwig stares ahead, struggling to process his impulsive outburst, shouting at a princess and throwing wine in her face. He's stunned by his own actions. Across from him, Ilse lowers her head, blaming herself. But before she can finish, Ludwig gently cuts in, insisting there's nothing to apologize for. If anyone should be sorry, it's him, for failing to protect her sooner. Her eyes widen in disbelief. Without hesitation, she clasps his shoulders, voice trembling, and tells him he did nothing wrong. He stood up for her, risking his future and reputation to defend her dignity. That moment settles between them, warm and sincere. Both realize they've been trying to apologize for something that needs no forgiveness. Ludwig breaks the silence with a soft laugh, grateful beyond words. He thanks Ilse from the bottom of his heart for defending him, for standing beside him, even against someone as powerful as Princess Sophie. Ilse, unable to hold back the emotion welling up inside, lowers her gaze, eyes misted with tears. She quietly thanks him for showing her such care and concern, so openly and without hesitation. Though the carriage moves forward, something deeper has shifted between them. They now look to each other not just with respect, but with trust, choosing to rely on one another moving forward. Later that night, Ludwig lies sprawled across his bed back at the royal mansion, staring at the ceiling in silent disbelief. His mind replays the events of the evening, confronting a princess, tossing a drink in her face, storming out of the ball. He sighs heavily, realizing how far he's deviated from the calculated path he intended to follow. He wanted to win over the heroines, break the doomed flags, and avoid the Empire's downfall, but after tonight's chaos, it feels almost impossible. Still, he clings to one quiet truth: he didn't betray himself, and that, somehow, offers a strange sense of comfort. Although Ludwig doesn't regret his actions, he feels disheartened. He knows that, after tonight, none of the heroines will likely ever believe that he's anything other than the hideous orc he was once labeled. Sitting up in bed, he sighs, thinking that things with Sophia, one of the main heroines, were never going to work out anyway. Holding his head, he briefly considers letting the story spiral toward a doomed ending, but quickly shakes off the thought, irritated. Each heroine has her own complications, and he can't handle them all at once. Overwhelmed by the endless possibilities, frustration and anxiety build until he buries his face in his hands, settling on one goal: survive first. Suddenly, a knock sounds at the door. Surprised someone would visit this late, he opens it, and is left speechless. Ilse stands there in a bold, elegant outfit, flustered but composed. She quietly apologizes for disturbing him at such an hour and asks if she may come in. Embarrassed, Ludwig quickly lets her in, but he's stunned when she immediately wraps her arms around him from behind. The sudden motion causes both of them to tumble onto the bed. Blushing, she explains that she came to thank him properly for standing up for her during the party. As Ludwig tries to brush it off, she hugs him tighter and says this is the only way she can express her thanks. He's left frozen, unsure how to react. Sensing his hesitation, she nervously asks if he's upset. Seeing her trembling, Ludwig blushes harder and awkwardly realizes that she's never experienced something like this before. Gently pulling off his night coat, he covers her with it and advises her, with a soft but serious voice, not to do this so easily, not even for him. She replies sadly that she has nothing else to give him. Ludwig steps closer, looking into her eyes, and tells her she should save herself for someone she truly loves. Her eyes grow misty as she listens in silence. Later, while she sits quietly on his bed, she shyly asks if she can at least stay beside him tonight. Though unsure, he agrees, telling her she can sleep on the bed while he takes the sofa. But Ilse quickly stops him, grabbing his hand and jumping on top of him with a flushed face. She insists that he stays on the bed, and she'll sleep beside him. As he panics inside, struggling to keep calm, she sweetly adds, her cheeks glowing red, that this is her first time sleeping next to a man. That night, Ludwig does everything he can to stay innocent and respectful, even as his heart pounds beside her. Though he secretly loves sleeping beside Ilse, he plans to rise early. However, he's surprised when Ilse wakes first, cheerfully greeting him good morning. When she admits she was so happy she couldn't sleep all night, he grows nervous, wondering if she watched him the entire time. She hugs him again with delight, and though flustered, he gently asks her to stand so he can start his routine. As he turns to leave, she politely calls him back, insisting he should rest properly and not leave so suddenly. Later, while walking outside, Ludwig feels surprisingly energetic despite the lack of sleep. Though he's already lost weight, he's determined to keep training, haunted by the thought that if he regains his old physique, even kind-hearted Ilse might turn away from him. Just as he begins his training, he's shocked to see Princess Ophelia already practicing nearby. He immediately bows, apologizing for the interruption. She dismisses the concern and instead asks how he knows her name. Smiling nervously, Ludwig explains she's his classmate and a royal from the Bryn United Kingdom. When his tone suggests he's been keeping tabs on her, she only smiles, which eases his anxiety. She changes the topic, asking why he's out so early. When he mentions he's about to start his routine, she excitedly offers to watch. Ludwig hesitates, saying there's nothing worth seeing and reminding her that she, too, was training. He's left speechless when she casually swings her bag over her shoulder and declares she's taking a break. Still puzzled by her sudden interest in him, Ludwig begins his wall-scaling exercises. After 30 minutes, he returns, surprised to see her still watching attentively. When she asks if he always uses such intense training methods, he recalls how Ilse once forced him into it. Hearing Ophelia comment that he seems very different from the rumors, Ludwig feels a surge of anger, clearly blaming Sophie for spreading lies. Then Ophelia surprises him again, saying she still knows little about him and would like to learn more. But before either of them can continue, Ilse appears behind Ludwig with an icy stare. He instantly panics, remembering a hidden game condition. If Ilse's affection reaches 200%, while another princess holds 100% loyalty, it triggers an assassination ending. Though the game never revealed who the killer was, her deadly glare confirms it for him. He's horrified, realizing he may have accidentally raised Ilse's affection too far. Ilse coldly asks what he's doing here. Ophelia, confused, asks if Ilse is Ludwig's attendant. She bows with a sharp smile and calmly introduces herself, her tone polite but her aura intense. When Ophelia innocently asks if serving Prince Ludwig makes her feel lucky, Ilse's expression softens slightly and she humbly agrees. Ludwig, bewildered by their exchange, watches silently. Ilse then, still smiling, reminds him of his long-standing bad reputation and notes how, the previous night, he defended his subordinate in front of nobles. She adds that if an attendant had insulted a foreign royal, execution wouldn't have been out of the question. At this, Ludwig is shocked to realize Ophelia had also been present at the ball. He assumes she must think poorly of him now, but she suddenly gives him a cheerful thumbs up, saying it was all very entertaining. Then, claiming she's getting cold, she excuses herself and runs off. Ludwig watches her leave in stunned silence. He had thought her direct and serious, but now she seems the opposite, unpredictable and interested in him. Before he can dwell further, Ilse, still cold-faced, orders him to resume training. Her voice sharpens as she demands he follow her instructions exactly. Worried by her intensity, Ludwig feels like he'll die from stress before any actual assassination. As he walks ahead, she abruptly stops him, comes close, and adjusts his stance. The sweet scent of her breath stuns him. He quickly steps back and thanks her. Then, side by side, the two enter the classroom in composed silence. As Ludwig and Ilse enter the classroom together, Princess Natalia teases them with a smile, asking when they became so close. Her sudden appearance irritates Ludwig, and he grows even more anxious seeing her knight, Batista, glaring at him. Meanwhile, Marco is off chatting with other girls. Before Ludwig can respond, Princess Ophelia approaches and casually tells Natalia that she and Ludwig trained together that morning. Ludwig forces a smile, clarifying it was only by coincidence. However, he grows tense again when Ilse's eyes turn cold, clearly displeased. Natalia simply laughs and says she'd love to join them sometime, but dedicates her mornings to praying to Lady Minerva. Ludwig, however, knows she worships for entirely different reasons. Ophelia lightly remarks that Natalia doesn't look like someone who practices combat. Natalia, smirking, retorts that Lady Minerva is not just the goddess of prosperity but also of war, and proudly declares her own expertise with a combat rod. Seeing both of these unpredictable princesses in one place annoys Ludwig. He finds it frustrating to have the two most troublesome nobles in his class. Their exchange is cut short when the homeroom teacher arrives and tells everyone to take their seats. As Ludwig sits, he finally feels a moment of peace, until Ilse, still glaring, orders him not to train in the courtyard tomorrow. When he hesitates, she raises her voice and reminds him she's his superior. He obediently agrees, inwardly terrified that the story might reach its bad ending before it even starts. That night, Ludwig trains seriously with his dual swords. Ilse had personally modified the blades to be 5 times heavier than normal, so his body is already used to the weight. After completing nearly 100 swings, he gains confidence, remembering how difficult it was to train under Ilse for a full year. Just as he switches the sword to his right hand, Princess Ophelia suddenly appears, startling him with her loud praise. Shocked by her unexpected arrival at the dormitory's backyard at night, he asks what she's doing there. Smiling, she says it's her usual spot for night training, but adds with a faint blush that she somehow felt she'd find him here. Ludwig panics, fearing Ilse would kill him if she found out. To his surprise, Ophelia wastes no time correcting his grip on the sword. Hugging him from behind, she gently guides his hands. He's too flustered to focus, and when she notices his distraction, she asks if he's even listening. Ludwig feels helpless. He's never had a real relationship, and suddenly all these noble girls are paying attention to him. His anxiety worsens when Ophelia bluntly asks if he has a girlfriend. Trying to distract himself, he thinks about how he always sneaks a snack after lights out and how he keeps it secret from Ilse to avoid worrying her. When he doesn't respond, Ophelia just laughs and changes the subject, suggesting they sparred together since they're already training. He quickly apologizes, saying he's no expert, but Ophelia still seems impressed with his efforts. When he insists he's not particularly skilled, she pouts cutely, clearly trying to make him reconsider. But he doesn't budge. She grows even more interested, not in his looks, but in his sincerity and dedication. She softly admits he's not like the hideous orc the rumors describe. Hearing this, Ludwig recalls a memory of a battle where Ophelia, then an enemy commander, was captured. She boldly declared that although they lost, they had fought with pride, and she had no regrets. He quietly admires her strength, both on the battlefield and in person. Ophelia then asks if he'd like to test his skills in some other way if he won't spar. When he asks if she just said something, she casually brushes it off with a smile. Changing the subject, she suggests they simply focus on training for the night. Ludwig agrees. Prince Ludwig and Ilse stroll through the lively imperial capital. Curious about the bustling stalls, he asks about them, and she happily tells him they serve a famous drink, frappe. Although he's never tried anything like it before, her recommendation excites him, and he decides to give it a try. As he looks around, surprised by the vibrant streets, Ilse, a bit amused, asks if this is his first time here. He nods, explaining that in the past, due to his health, he wasn't allowed outside, and afterward, he was too busy training with her. Then he asks if she's been here before, and Ilse cheerfully shares that her family estate is on the city's outskirts. Seeing the huge crowd, Ludwig excitedly asks if there's a festival, noticing the many food stalls. While they walk, Ludwig spots Princess Ophelia speaking with someone. He immediately looks worried and quickly changes direction. When she asks if he's all right, he simply nods and, trying to shift the mood, suggests they grab something to eat. Now seated, Ilse curiously asks if he plans to duel Princess Ophelia. He quickly denies it with a grin, asking for her help to avoid Ophelia for 2 days. Ilse gladly agrees. Relieved to have delayed the possibility of assassination, Ludwig relaxes, until suddenly, Princess Ophelia approaches. With a bold voice and determined gaze, she declares that a sword is the best way to test an opponent. Through battle, she wants to find out whether he's truly a monstrous orc or something else. Just as Princess Ophelia finishes her bold challenge, she turns with a smirk and casually excuses him, this time. Ludwig exhales in relief and waves politely, but she throws a wicked smile over her shoulder, saying she won't disappoint him in the fight next time. Ilse, clearly a little jealous, grins and teases Ophelia, asking if these kinds of jokes are common in the Bryn United Kingdom. But as the mood turns tense, half joke, half assassination attempt, Ludwig, now alarmed, quickly interrupts. He apologizes and says Princess Ophelia must be too busy to fight today. Ophelia, teasingly, asks if he's also not busy, suggesting he fight her instead. Ludwig immediately tries to excuse himself, saying he has many important tasks after school. She then sweetly asks if he's free tomorrow to fight, and Ludwig panics, smiling awkwardly. Annoyed, Ilse asks why Ophelia is so stubborn about fighting him. Ludwig, thinking to himself, feels frustrated, convinced that Ophelia is simply battle-crazed. But then Ophelia, suddenly looking sad, asks if he's truly that rude, refusing to fight her. Panicked again, Ludwig quickly denies it, which only excites her more. She clearly wants to battle someone strong, and Ludwig fits that description all too well. As they continue walking, Ludwig grows more annoyed, only to hear another voice call him from behind. It's Princess Natalia, cheeks flushed, approaching with her guards. He groans internally, having just barely escaped Ophelia. He awkwardly turns and forces a smile, pretending to be excited to see her. Natalia, licking her lips nervously, cheerfully invites him to have a drink with her. That makes Ludwig freeze in fear, but Ilse quickly steps in, saying he's already having a frappe with her. Ludwig eagerly agrees, adding that Ilse told him the frappes here are excellent. Natalia, still blushing and full of energy, rightly suggests they all drink together, since they're already here. Seeing Natalia's excitement, Ilse steps in with a playful smile, teasing her for rushing over without a thought for Lord Battista and Sir Marco, who trail behind. Natalia, feigning grace, replies that Lord Minerva would surely be pleased to see the saint of the Holy Church and the crown princess of the Empire forming a strong bond. Then, her tone sharpening, she asks if that isn't Ilse's priority as well. Ilse, still teasing, counters that Minerva's teachings have little to do with personal ties to Prince Ludwig. Natalia, more resolute now, insists it's her duty to strengthen unity between the Holy Church and the Balderburg Empire. For the peace of the Western realms, she must remain close to its future ruler. Ludwig, realizing that Natalia is already thinking about the potential for future war between the Empire and Western nations, understands her reasoning, though it unsettles him. Still, with a calm smile, he laughs and says she's overestimating him. He explains that although he is the crown prince, it doesn't guarantee he'll become emperor. Inwardly, Ludwig's expression turns blank. He tells himself he never wants the throne, not if it means becoming part of the same hideous system he despises. He believes there's no future if he ascends, only revenge and ruin. But seeing Ilse glaring angrily at Natalia, and sensing the tension rising, he quickly steps in, loudly suggesting they all enjoy their frappés together instead. Natalia, delighted, eagerly rushes off and orders 3. As they sit down, Ludwig notices a thoughtful, almost troubled look on Ilse's face. Curious, he asks what's wrong. Ilse brushes it off with a laugh, saying it's only natural for the future emperor, Prince Ludwig, to form connections with the saint of the Minerva Church. Her words leave him stunned. He wonders if Ilse only stays by his side to restore the Hildebrandt family, and believes that unless he becomes emperor, her dream will never come true. With a gentle smile, he reassures her not to worry. He quietly promises to restore her family's honor, even if he never takes the throne. In his heart, he decides this is how he will repay her loyalty. Ilse, looking flustered, lowers her gaze and softly insists, "That's not what this is about." They decide to place their orders. Ludwig receives his frappe, but freezes upon noticing 2 straws in the cup. He stands there, confused, until Ilse calmly explains that frappes are meant to be shared between 2 people. Still processing the situation, Ludwig becomes visibly flustered. Natalia, noticing, offers her own frappe to Ilse with enthusiastic cheer. However, Ilse politely declines, stating that she intends to share with Prince Louis. With cheerful insistence, she urges him to enjoy it while it's still cold. Embarrassed and unsure how to react, Ludwig hesitates. Both of them, their faces slightly red, slowly lean toward the drink. As they move closer, he realizes Ilse is just as nervous as he is, their lips near the straws, and they each take a small sip. Instantly, both light up with joy, their expressions bursting into smiles at how delicious it tastes. Natalia watches them with amusement, then offers Ludwig a sip of her drink. He immediately refuses, cheeks flushing deeper. The idea feels too intimate, almost like a kiss. Trying to be polite, he suggests she share it with someone else. Natalia, misreading his intent, assumes he means Battista and points out he already has his own. Before she can continue, a guard approaches to announce it's time to leave. She agrees, offering Ludwig a hopeful smile as she departs, clearly looking forward to seeing him in class. As her entourage leaves, Ludwig reflects briefly on Battista's cold demeanor from their first meeting. He suspects the knight may dislike him. Now alone with Ilse again, Ludwig glances at her. A soft, content smile forms on his lips. He knows this is duty for Ilse, but to him it feels like a date. Ilse, catching his gaze, lowers her eyes, cheeks flushed, just as flustered as he is. After finishing their frappe, as they begin to leave, Ludwig smiles and gently holds Ilse's hand, thinking it's a natural part of a date. But Ilse suddenly stops him, then dashes ahead, reminding him that it's time for their nightly training. He watches her run, cheeks flushed, wondering if she, too, considers this outing a date. Holding her hand a little longer, he shares a quiet hope to revisit the same street next week and enjoy another frappe together. A week passes. After class, Ludwig is utterly exhausted, dozing off from lack of sleep. Ophelia's constant involvement with him has made Ilse much stricter and colder during their morning training sessions. While they continue their practice, Ludwig notices someone unexpected, Sophia walking beside a man. He instantly recognizes the man as the same one who had spoken with Ophelia the previous week. The realization hits him. This might be the person who spread lies about him. Although Ludwig doesn't want to confront Sophia, he also knows that avoiding her now would only make him appear guilty. He decides to keep walking, but unexpectedly, Sophia passes right by him without a word. The silence leaves him confused. As they continue walking, Ilse happily suggests they take a lunch break, but as they turn a corner, Ludwig freezes. A large crowd of students blocks the path ahead, their faces filled with hostility. He's startled. He had always suspected he wasn't well liked, but this open anger shocks him. Ilse immediately asks for his permission to disperse the crowd by force, but Ludwig quickly stops her. With a hard expression, he raises his voice, asking if they intend to keep him from even eating lunch. The crowd erupts, shouting accusations, calling him a hideous orc unworthy of sitting near them. Ludwig stands still, stunned. These students know nothing about the truth. They have been swayed by lies on social media, blindly hating him. His frustration boils over, and he suddenly blurts out that they're all pathetic. The outburst makes the crowd even more enraged, and fear creeps into him. Ilse calmly steps forward, her voice steady as she supports him. She declares that hiding in shadows and insulting others from behind safety is far more disgraceful than any rumor. Their words are cut off when Ophelia bursts through the crowd, face twisted in fury, and grabs Ludwig by the collar. She shouts, accusing him of insulting Princess Sophia at the imperial ball. Ludwig is stunned by the claim. He tries to calm her, explaining that he never even met Sophia that night. Ophelia, still furious, insists that Sophia's attendant, Thomas, told her that he had to stop Ludwig from picking a fight. Ludwig quickly pieces the situation together. The man he saw with Sophia earlier is likely the same person who met with Ophelia to fabricate this lie. He tries to explain again, loudly, that he doesn't even know the man's name. Ophelia remains firm, claiming she once believed he was better than the rumors. Ludwig interrupts, swearing that he was with Ilse the entire night. But as the crowd shifts its angry attention to Ilse, they begin to suspect she's part of his supposed deception. Realizing the situation is spiraling, Ludwig clarifies that they were only dancing, nothing more. Still, Sophia steps forward, seething with anger, and demands a duel with swords to judge whether he truly is innocent. Ludwig panics, admitting he is not skilled in formal dueling. Sophia, unfazed, permits Ilse to assist if he begins to lose. She then adds a cruel condition. If he refuses to fight, he must admit guilt, and declares that Ilse is nothing more than his hideous orc's plaything. The insult cuts deep. Ludwig, keeping Ilse behind him protectively, feels a sharp anger rise within. He accepts the challenge, but only under the condition that if Sophia loses, she must publicly apologize to Ilse for the humiliation. As Ludwig, burning with anger, accepts the challenge, Ophelia grins with satisfaction. With a calculating smile, she suggests they settle the fight on the Academy's training grounds after class. When the final bell rings, Ludwig walks toward the arena, chuckling softly. It's finally time to unsheathe the custom-forged blades he had made using every privilege afforded to him as the crown prince. With a confident smirk, he draws his twin swords, his personal weapons, feeling the weight of resolve settle in his grip. Ilse, however, watches with growing concern. She gently tells him he didn't have to accept such a dangerous duel. But Ludwig, placing a finger lightly against her lips, silences her. This is not just about the fight. It's to prove her innocence. And beyond that, he wants to defeat Ophelia. He assures her, with deep determination, that they will win together. Before the match begins, he pulls Ilse aside to discuss something in private. A few minutes later, they arrive at the training ground. The crowd is already thick, and the excitement is palpable. Ludwig is shocked to realize that nearly the entire academy has shown up, most hoping to see him lose to Ophelia. The air is heavy with anticipation. Noticing the twin swords in his hands, Ophelia smirks teasingly. She remembers those blades well from their childhood sparring days. Her expression sharpens with excitement. While Ludwig is visibly nervous, she draws her heavy sword with a flourish, radiating energy and confidence, and signals for the match to begin. Ilse quietly urges him not to fight too recklessly. As the fight starts, Ludwig, steeling himself, shouts for Ophelia to come at him, holding his twin swords in a defensive stance. She charges without hesitation, her sword gleaming with surging energy. Her first strike crashes into him with incredible force, and though he manages to shield himself, the impact sends him stumbling several meters back. The crowd gasps. Ophelia, surprised and amused, laughs at his ability to withstand her full-powered blow. On the outside, Ludwig forces a smile, but inside, fear grips him. Her strength is overwhelming. His spine feels cold, and his hands go numb from the sheer shock of her attack. Before he can recover, she lunges again, her eyes gleaming with madness, delivering another fierce strike with a wicked smile that chills him to the bone. Ludwig stands stunned, watching how effortlessly Ophelia swings her massive sword as if it were a light branch. Her strikes carry the weight of a steel hammer smashing into solid rock, and he struggles to block each one. Every blow shakes his body, making him wonder if she trained under some brutal regime where slamming herself into the ground was routine. Ophelia laughs confidently, believing the fight will end quickly. But as she continues attacking, she notices Ludwig still standing, still defending. She's impressed. This isn't over yet, and she's genuinely enjoying the challenge. Ludwig rests his swords on his shoulders and forces a cocky smile. He charges at her, teasing whether these are the only attacks she has, claiming he's still full of energy. In truth, his entire body screams in pain. He's barely holding on. Motivated by his bravado, Ophelia smirks and prepares her ultimate attack, a powerful move that can cut through anything. She sprints forward, launches herself into the air, and spins with incredible speed, her sword carving through the wind. Ludwig braces himself, barely managing to block, realizing this must be the move she uses to knock back even the strongest enemies. It's devastating, but he also knows it leaves her unable to act for the next two exchanges. At that exact moment, as Ophelia lands and briefly falters, Ilse suddenly charges in from the side. With perfect timing, she delivers a flying kick that knocks Ophelia off balance. Shock ripples through the crowd. The fight between the two girls begins. Ophelia attacks with fury, but Ilse swiftly blocks her strikes. Within moments, Ilse takes control, locking Ophelia's neck between her legs and bringing her to the ground. Seated firmly, she declares victory. Meanwhile, Ludwig lies on the ground, groaning from the pain. Just then, Princess Natalia arrives. Without a word, she kneels beside him and uses her advanced healing magic. A golden glow surrounds him, and the pain fades almost instantly. He slowly sits up, surprised to see her, and stares at her in disbelief. Natalia smiles gently and asks if he's all right. Still shocked, Ludwig asks why she helped him. She replies with a smile that she just happened to be passing by. He gratefully thanks her, and she warmly welcomes him back to his feet, then quickly directs his attention to the other side of the field. There Ilse, filled with rage, straddles Ophelia and raises a knife, her expression deadly serious. Ludwig's eyes widen in horror, and he immediately shouts her name, commanding her to stop. Hearing his voice, Ilse freezes. She drops the blade, scrambles off Ophelia, and runs to Ludwig's side. Her face is filled with concern as she comes close and asks if he's truly all right. He nods, saying Natalia already healed him. Ophelia, still recovering, glares at them and shouts in frustration, demanding whether this was all part of his plan. Ludwig's expression turns cold. He thinks bitterly that if he had recklessly attacked her head-on, she would have struck him down instantly. There would have been no fight at all. Ilse calmly reminds Ophelia of her own words, that Ilse was allowed to step in if Ludwig was losing confidence. He then proudly explains to the crowd that everything happened as planned. Ilse struck at the perfect moment. Ilse, taken aback, asks if he really orchestrated it all. He smiles and admits that he was doing his best to endure and defend the entire time. But the crowd is not pleased. Anger boils over as students shout that it wasn't a fair duel. They accuse Ludwig, the so-called hideous orc, of cheating and using his attendant to win. The jeers grow louder, demanding that he leave the academy. Princess Ophelia silences the crowd, scolding them for belittling her duel with Prince Ludwig. She reminds them that she allowed a 2-on-1 match, and he won fairly under the rules. With a sharp warning not to interfere, the crowd falls silent. Still irritated that the crowd ruined their duel, Ophelia rushes to Ilse and Ludwig, praising their fighting style and bowing to apologize for her earlier rudeness. Ilse forgives her immediately, easing Ludwig's tension as well. Ophelia then turns to Ludwig, acknowledging his victory and saying she now trusts his words. However, she reminds him that the rest of the crowd doesn't feel the same. Whether he lied from the beginning or not, they simply dislike him. He lowers his gaze in silence, unable to respond. Ophelia calls her attendant Clarice, who promptly throws Thomas, his hands tied with rope, to the ground. Furious, Ophelia slams her sword into the ground and demands to know why he lied about the night of the ball, that Prince Ludwig abused Princess Sophia. Overwhelmed, Thomas sobs and tries to deny it in broken words. When Clarice adds that he continued to anger the crowd against Ludwig even after the incident, Ophelia buries her face in her hands in frustration. Then, looking up in despair, she asks Sophia what punishment her attendant should receive. Princess Sophia, gloomy and disappointed in her attendant's disgraceful behavior, suggests executing him to preserve the kingdom's honor. Ludwig is shocked when Ophelia proposes beheading Thomas in front of the crowd, but Sophia immediately permits it. Crying, Thomas bows and insists he did it all for her. Annoyed, she says nothing and walks away. Ludwig is stunned when Princess Ophelia turns to him and suggests he decide Thomas's punishment, since he was the one who abused him and Ilse the most. Seeing Ilsa ready to strike, he exhales and admits that Thomas deserves to be punished, but adds that it shouldn't be only him. The entire crowd that cheered or encouraged the abuse should also be judged by the Balderberg Empire's judiciary. Deep down, he knows Thomas will receive the harshest punishment, while the others will likely get only warnings. When he insists that the procedure stay confidential, even from Kingdom Belga, Princess Sophia scolds him sharply. Meanwhile, Ophelia tells everyone to pay attention to how the attendants, Ilsa, Clarice, and Thomas, behave differently after the night of the ball. As Ludwig scans the crowd, he notices a long-haired girl smiling at him. He quickly looks away and asks Ophelia if this was all her plan. With a clever smile, she says it was, to see his true nature, and now she has. She waves and walks off. Watching her leave, he is struck by her strength and intelligence. The next day, they have lunch together. While eating, Princess Ophelia suggests that Ludwig practice with her, which he immediately declines. Ilsa, visibly angry, snaps that he should have lunch somewhere else next time. Ophelia also shouts at Ilsa for her cold behavior. Seeing them argue, he exhales in frustration, realizing he can't have a peaceful meal, thinking Ophelia is both a psycho and secretly a klutz. His frustration is interrupted when Saint Natalia approaches proudly and hugs him from behind, suggesting they go into town together. Seeing her attendant shout at him to stay away from Princess Natalia, Ludwig is speechless. He hasn't done anything wrong, but seeing Ilsa so furious and ready to attack the attendant, he panics and urges everyone to calm down. While teasing Ilsa and Ophelia for their harsh behavior that day, Natalia affectionately, with a blessed smile, asks Ludwig to help her serve at the soup kitchen in the imperial slums by the church. Ophelia also suggests he assist her, and he happily thanks her for the invitation. After all, as a crown prince, he would gladly help, making Natalia beam with joy. On the day, everyone shouts to the crowd to form lines to ensure proper distribution of food. Seeing the panicked and hungry crowd, Ludwig feels exhausted. When Ophelia asks why, he explains that even though the empire is powerful, seeing ordinary people suffer from hunger is overwhelming. She solemnly remarks that their empire has leaned heavily toward militarism. The effects may not yet be obvious, but they will soon impact even the common people. Knowing this, Ludwig resolves to prevent destruction and ensure survival at any cost. Embarrassed but smiling, he listens as Ophelia urges him to use his abilities to lead the nation better. He feels grateful to both Natalia, who helps him understand the empire's inner workings, and Ophelia, who motivates him further. Later, Natalia's attendant angrily insists he go with her, but when he refuses, he grabs him by the collar. Ludwig shouts in frustration. He still has duties distributing soup at the church. The attendant angrily tells him to meet her behind a wall afterward. Ludwig, still flustered, glances back, confused to see Ophelia holding food and looking puzzled as well. After the event, he asks Ilsa to wait for him, but she refuses to leave him alone. Now, both of them stand behind the wall in front of Natalia's attendant, Batista. Batista grows angry seeing Ilsa with him, but he quickly brings him to the point. Rudely calling him by his full name, he tells him to move away from Saintess Natalia, explaining that she has the divine duty of guiding all Western nations, and that the Minerva Holy Church, a massive religious institution spanning the entire Western world, is under her care. Finally clarifying his own purpose to avoid interfering with Natalia's duties, Ludwig boldly insists to Batista that he will not move away, asserting that it is her choice to do as she wishes. After the soup kitchen, he has already changed his mind about Natalia, not just seeing her as the black-hearted witch. Calmly, he informs Batista that he will leave if there's nothing else to do. Batista, frustrated and folding his fists, shouts angrily that he will not allow Ludwig, a hideous orc, to follow Saintess Natalia, for as the reincarnation of Lord Minerva, she is destined to save this broken world. As they begin to leave, Marco suddenly appears, wearing an evil smile, and asks if Ludwig is truly not backing down from Natalia. Ludwig, confused by the teasing, is shocked that Marco is quietly listening, as he had thought Marco was against him. Before the tense situation escalates further, Ilsa takes Ludwig's hand and quietly walks away. Seeing Ilsa still in an angry mood, he immediately thanks her for helping him. Her face softens with a blush and a happy smile, though she dismisses it, saying it's her duty. He makes a habit of thanking her every day to avoid harsh endings. Suddenly noticing someone behind a hurdle, he quietly suggests Ilsa wait while he attends to some church duties. As he moves out, Natalia appears. Despite Ilsa's lingering anger, she still does interfere with him. She apologizes for disturbing him and first thanks him for helping her at the soup kitchen, adding that with his assistance, they were even able to distribute blankets and other supplies. Ludwig humbly bows and admits that it is also an honor for him to help, though he feels a bit ashamed for not doing it alone. She responds modestly, explaining that the soup kitchen is primarily managed by the church and that his support has truly made a difference. She suggests they sit somewhere to talk. He humbly clears a spot and places a handkerchief on the floor, inviting her to sit. She thanks him politely, and he feels relaxed, pleased to be practicing proper etiquette from the books. Affectionately observing him, she is surprised by how different he is from the rumors. He humbly bows and apologizes for his attendant Batista's rude behavior earlier. Seeing her like that, Ludwig gently holds her by the shoulders and reassures her that it is not her fault. When he notices her teary eyes, he confesses that he does not intend to leave her alone and requests that she invite him again to help with the church work. She is impressed by him and happily agrees to include him next time. As they shake hands to seal the agreement, he becomes shocked when she pulls her hand back and gloomily asks if he is a monster sent to destroy the world and harm women. She sighs in despair, asking if he truly would ruin the world. Panicked, he denies any such intention. Looking into his eyes, she realizes he is not lying, smiles in relief, and declares that she trusts him. While holding her hand, Ludwig smiles, slightly embarrassed as he is surprised by how all these women, including Ilsa, despite not being fighters, wield such strength and authority. 1 month later, after practicing combat with Ophelia, Ludwig feels increasingly worried about Saint Natalia. As Clarice serves Ophelia a drink and she wipes her face after the fight, they tell Ludwig that Natalia has gone to Holga, the kingdom's second largest city, at its far western edge. While also serving him, Ilsa explains sadly that Natalia is treating patients with an unknown illness using Holy Church medicine. In magical healing, such medicine can accidentally activate harmful bacteria or viruses, making it very difficult even for an expert like Natalia to save her patients. Seeing how anxious Ludwig is, both Clarice and Ilsa reassure him not to worry, promising that Natalia will be fine while caring for the sick. While drinking, Ophelia smiles and suggests simply praying for Natalia's safety and arranging a warm welcome upon her return. He calmly agrees. 2 weeks later, everyone is shocked upon receiving a letter from Natalia's attendant, Marco. The letter details her illness and requests help from both Ludwig and Ophelia's kingdoms. As the disease remains incurable and the number of patients continues to rise daily, even saints struggle against it. Seeing Ludwig's worried expression, Ilsa asks about his plan. Despite Natalia's reputation as a black-hearted flirt, he recognizes her commitment to performing her duties well. With no hatred in his heart, he resolves to help her at any cost. Determined, he privately plans a visit to Borggonia. Ilsa, anxious for his safety, insists on going first herself, but he quietly refuses, explaining that Marco's panicked letter failed to clarify the situation, and he needs to confirm the details personally. Beyond that, he genuinely cares about Natalia's well-being. Seeing Ilsa still so concerned, Ophelia smiles, gently holding her hand, and remarks with admiration that Prince Ludwig is truly brave in moments like these. He immediately decides to use the teleportation spell Circulation, which allows nearly instantaneous travel over any distance. However, Ophelia reminds him that these portals are only installed in capital cities and can only be used if there are diplomatic ties between the locations. Worried, realizing that Borggonia has no such ties, he asks Ophelia to use Brynn as a midpoint, and she immediately agrees. Excited, he thanks her warmly. He then asks Ilsa to handle the portal registration, while Ophelia suggests that Clarice assist them. Both readily agree. While traveling to the palace, she informs him that this time they will be using the portal in the palace's foreign ministry. He admires her resourcefulness, but Ophelia worries that if anyone is infected with the virus, it could cause serious problems for the entire palace. She also realizes that the cautious ministers would likely not allow them to use it under normal circumstances. Ludwig feels slightly uneasy as well, knowing that with fewer people present, there would be less help available if any problem arises. Upon arriving at the royal portal, they walk forward, as Ilsa informs him that the mana connection has been completed. Ludwig feels a little uneasy, knowing they are technically ignoring the rule that the royal portal should only be used by citizens. He panics briefly, imagining scenarios of the hideous orc's revenge or stories from the lore. However, when Ilsa explains that she has updated and installed the mana core specifically for this transfer, he decides to push aside his worries. Focusing entirely on the teleportation portal, he becomes fully determined, despite lingering anxiety, to arrive quickly and help Natalia. When they arrive, they are struck by the gloom of countless sick people and ruined supplies. Inside, they find Saintess Natalia resting, her body stiff and in pain. Seeing them, Marco, a sly smile playing on his face rather than showing concern, thanks them both for coming. Ludwig, worried, immediately asks about Natalia's health. Marco coldly and almost mockingly describes her dire condition, explaining that she is extremely weak. He casually adds that Batista has also been infected, so frail that he can barely rest even in another room. Standing up from his chair, Marco orders everyone to move outside the room. Once alone, he explains how Natalia is gradually turning to stone, casually describing how, over the past 2 months, the number of patients has increased day by day. Their skin petrifies, leading inevitably to death. With a chilling tone, he adds that at this rate, the entire town could be destroyed, and if even a single patient reaches the capital, the whole country could vanish. Ophelia, deeply worried, asks Ludwig what he plans to do. Marco casually mentions he needs to adjust Batista's blanket tuners, but Ludwig is shocked when he notices a small stone fall from Marco's pocket. He quietly picks it up and hides it in his own pocket. Then, summoning his courage, he calls Marco over and asks for permission to see Natalia once more. Marco, with a trace of accusation in his tone, surprisingly agrees. As he opens the door, Ilsa, deeply worried, tries to stop him, but he reassures her not to worry and sits beside Natalia. She looks at him in broken words and, ashamed of her pathetic condition, averts her gaze. Ludwig already understands the severity of her situation. In the game, after being broken down, she became deeply frustrated with her helplessness. Raised from a poor farmer's daughter to a saintess, she was burdened by the title and eventually gave her soul to the demon Diabolo, and after that, she was never truly saved. Seeing her like this, living in a world of destruction, he tries to ease her self-reproach. He praises her tireless efforts to save the kingdom, even at the risk of her own life, and reminds her that they came to help. His words move her, and tears well up in her eyes. Holding her hands gently, he reassures her that he can save her country, and that he will support her in her place. As he prepares to leave, Ilsa holds him from behind, worriedly suggesting that he be sterilized first before entering the inn. Seeing both girls so anxious and tense, Ludwig tries to calm them. He explains that this is not a disease at all. Instead, it is the petrifying effect of a strong dragon's mana core, something he recognizes from the game. Seeing the shocked reactions of both girls, he reassures them that he has studied this magic extensively in the royal archives. He explains that in the Lu Dujin game, a stone dragon's mana core was added to increase the challenge for players. Now, he describes the true power of this magic stone. If it were thrown into the town's water supply, it could petrify every resident. Everyone gasps at the revelation, realizing that someone may be trying to destroy the town using this magic. When Clarice anxiously asks about the town's safety, Ludwig shows them the magic-absorbing stone he picked up earlier. Even so, he worries that it may not be enough to save all the affected people. Still determined to help, he loudly lays out his plan. First, they must collect all the magic-absorbing stones, then track down the stone dragon's mana core. Hearing his well-thought-out plan, everyone agrees and immediately sets out to begin the mission. Kneeling respectfully before his father, Ludwig humbly asks for permission to use the magic-absorbing stones, knowing that without the king's approval, it would be impossible. Even Ophelia has petitioned the King of Brynn for similar stones. Seeing his father's initially confused expression, Ludwig firmly explains that in this difficult time, helping the distant country would bring long-term advantages for their own kingdom. His thoughtful reasoning and well-explained plan leave the king momentarily stunned. Then, breaking into a proud laugh, he admires his son's intelligence and, with a mixture of pride and affection, grants Ludwig permission to use the mana stones as he wishes. After receiving permission, he walks down the hallway. Ilsa, grateful, thanks him for securing the approval and asks whether he plans to inform the Holy Church or the Kingdom of Borggonia. He shakes his head firmly, knowing that revealing this news might alert the culprits. Relying on the support of the Empire and the Kingdom of Brynn, he determines that together they should be able to secure enough absorbing stones. Yet, deep down, he worries that gathering sufficient stones to cure the entire infected nation will be a formidable challenge. Noticing his gloomy expression, Ilsa gently holds his hand and acknowledges his tireless efforts. Despite the Holy Church having given up on Borggonia, his determination to help the patients inspires hope, and she quietly admires his unwavering resolve. Then she loudly confesses that she is honored to serve him. Both of them smile proudly as he assures her to focus on their mission, saving all the infected people and punishing the culprits. Arriving at Ophelia, they stand before the teleportation machine. Ludwig turns to Ilsa, handing her the magic-absorbing stone, and quietly instructing her to give it secretly to Saintess Natalia, placing it beneath her mouth to cure her petrification. He leans closer and whispers that this must be kept private, especially from Marco and Batista. With a happy, blushing face, Ludwig confesses that he trusts only her, as she is his attendant and always will be. She beams innocently in agreement, holding the magic-absorbing stone as she teleports to the infected town. As he prepares to leave, he turns to Ophelia and Clarice, asking for their help. They immediately agree. That night, they arrive at a massive pond, and Ludwig explains that the water source of Polga flows from this pond. When Clarice asks whether it is possible that the dragon's mana core is hidden here, he opens the bag of magic-absorbing stones and explains that, if their hypothesis is correct, they will need to search the entire lake bed. Ophelia, shocked at the thought, immediately steps back, realizing that if it is true, the entire pond could petrify instantly, although he insists he has enough experience, capable of holding his breath for nearly 5 minutes and having already dived dozens of times while silently exploring. Ophelia remains deeply worried. To her, entering such a contaminated area borders on suicide regardless of his confidence. He attempts to reassure them, explaining that his Orcish physique, weighing nearly 300 kilos, will keep him from floating and allow him to walk across the lake bed with relative ease. His determination impresses her, yet the anxiety in her expression only intensifies. After sending the Isle ahead to scout, he prepares himself, tightening his robe and passing the other end of the rope into their hands. He entrusts his safety to them completely, making it clear that a pull on the rope will signal either dwindling air or the discovery of the dragon's mana core. Both women accept the responsibility. Ophelia's face shines with nervous sweat as she watches him approach the water's edge, afraid of what might be beneath. Still gripping the rope with fierce determination, Ophelia silently vows that his survival is tied to her own, refusing to let him perish alone. He meets her worry with a faint, teasing smile before storing mana-absorbing magic in his mouth. Then he dives into the lake, leaving them on shore, hoping for his safe return. As he dives deeper, he becomes shocked to find an immense black pitch surrounding him. The darkness is suffocating, and a gnawing fear grips him at the thought of locating such a powerful mana core. Even with the magic-absorbing stone in his mouth, the sheer strength of the core begins petrifying his feet, turning them slowly to stone. Panic flares. Any direct contact with the core could be instantly fatal, but he pushes aside fear for himself, forcing his body forward despite his partially immobilized, stiffening legs. Then he sees it, a massive, shining dragon mana core, pulsating with immense energy. Instantly, he decides to seize it, though the magic has begun to affect his entire lower body. Even with the protective stone, he finds himself unable to move freely. Summoning every ounce of courage, he leaps, finally grasping the glowing core. Without a second thought for his own safety, he sits and pushes the core toward all the magic-absorbing stones, completing the transfer. The strain is immense. The magic flows through him, turning much of his body to stone. Helpless, but determined, he braces himself, waiting for them to pull him back to safety. On the beach, watching him struggle in the water, Ophelia panics, her worry overwhelming. She urges Clarice to throw all the magic-absorbing stones into the lake. As the stones begin to take effect, the dragon's mana core is completely neutralized, even though his body remains partially petrified. He exhales in relief, feeling some relaxation for the first time, though the lingering effects of the magic leave him unable to speak. Suddenly, the remaining magic-absorbing stones are tossed over him, covering his body entirely except for his face. He squeezes through the pain as the stone's magic works to reverse the petrification. Slowly, his body begins to return to normal. With Ophelia's help, he is finally pulled safely onto the shore, exhausted but alive. As he moves onto the shore, still teasing about all the magic stones thrown at him, Ophelia's emotions finally overflow. With tears in her eyes and cheeks flushed red, she throws herself into his arms, hugging him tightly. In that exact moment, Ilsa arrives, startling him. He wonders if she sensed him with clairvoyance or some other method. Without hesitation, Ilsa rushes toward him, pushing Ophelia gently aside, her eyes wide with worry as she demands to know what happened. Though he does not respond immediately, Ophelia explains through tears how he risked his life to retrieve the stone dragon's mana core. Ilsa, overwhelmed with fear and concern, her own eyes brimming with tears, asks if he wants her to live with guilt and sadness because of his actions. Crying, she hugs him tightly, pleading emotionally that he never put himself in such danger again. Realizing her concern and the pain his actions caused her, he feels sad and resolves never to make her feel that way again. Now, looking out over the deep lake, Ilsa quietly refuses to leave his side again, her sadness evident. He laughs, slightly embarrassed, and quickly changes the topic, asking if she is all right. She responds gruffly, telling him to take better care of himself before asking after her well-being. On his insistence, she inquires about his next plan, mentioning that Saintess Natalia has already recovered. When he reveals his intention to punish the culprits to death, she winces, suggesting that he leave it to her instead. He smiles gently, asking her not to be so cruel. Hearing their conversation, Ophelia senses that he may have a suspicion in mind. Turning to her, he admits that, while he does not have solid evidence, he does have an idea of what is happening. Ophelia and Clarisse exchange a determined glance, each gripping their swords tightly, prepared to eliminate the culprits at any cost. He smiles teasingly, noting that this time the wrongdoer has angered the wrong person. Suddenly, everyone becomes alert as Marco approaches, asking their purpose for visiting this place. Ludwig, without hiding his concern, questions him directly, wondering why he is here instead of taking care of Saintess Natalia. As Marco teasingly asks not to be made a fool and questions when he will learn the truth, Ophelia feels confused. Marco is a holy knight of the church. He could not possibly be the culprit. Ludwig explains how the petrification affected the entire town, even the Saintess, yet her close attendants remained untouched, deepening the mystery. Then, with a loud and shocking declaration, Ludwig accuses the Minerva Holy Church of being the mastermind behind it all. Ophelia is stunned. How could a church orchestrate such harm against the town of Borggonia, even targeting the Saintess? As they discuss, Marco listens calmly, a subtle, sinister smile playing across his face. Ludwig admits he lacks concrete evidence to implicate Natalia directly, but he notes that she might have been seen as a hurdle. From his knowledge of the game, he understands that the Balderberg Empire opposes the Pope of the Minerva Church. In this context, the Saintess respects Pope Agrimazione, while Cardinal Lorenzo Rudolfo Maldini of the Minerva Holy Church stands in opposition. He finally adds that Cardinal Lorenzo sees Saintess Natalia, the most beloved figure among the public, as the biggest obstacle to gaining full control of the church. After hearing the full story, all the members grip their swords, ready to strike Marco and capture him, intending to bring him to Borggonia prison, where he could be made to reveal everything. Suddenly, Battista arrives, moving swiftly and aggressively, launching an attack on Ludwig. Ludwig, taken aback, questions whether everything he said about Natalia's actions at the soup kitchen was a lie. Battista ignores the question, shouting accusations that blame Ludwig for the Saintess's changing behavior. He feels confused and frustrated at Battista's accusations, even as they continue to fight fiercely. Angrily, he explains that he once witnessed the Saintess kneeling to some demon in an effort to please him, and that her behavior changed after their encounter. Part of him feels sad, thinking she should keep this secret, whether she truly worships a demon or not. At the same time, he scolds Battista for spying so intensely on the Saintess. Battista dismisses him, shouting that, as her attendant, it is his duty to watch over her constantly. Ludwig grows even more dissatisfied, seeing it as nothing more than obsessive stalking. The two continue to clash while Marco intervenes, calmly urging Battista to stop fighting. Battista halts, though he issues a sharp warning about death should Ludwig interact with him again, mockingly calling him a hideous orc. As they leave, Ophelia shouts angrily after them, demanding they stop, but he restrains her. He explains that with the true mastermind revealed, it is no longer their fight. They will let the Kingdom of Borggonia and the Minerva Holy Church handle the matter from here. Hearing some rustling in the bushes, he frowns in annoyance and looks toward the noise, but sees Saintess Natalia standing there with a gloomy expression, leaving him shocked. With a flustered sigh, he reassures her that he will not leave her alone again and asks carefully about her health. She humbly thanks him for ensuring her full recovery. When he asks if she overheard Battista's words, she laughs mischievously, admitting that she does indeed worship the demon Diavolo, though she also understands why Battista would be angry at her. Tears well in her eyes as she asks if he too feels disappointed in her. Calmly denying any disappointment, he tells her that whether she worships a demon or a goddess is irrelevant. Her true, pure identity as Natalia Silvestri is enough for him. Deeply moved by his words and actions, she blushes and hugs him affectionately. Holding her close, he smiles and teasingly suggests that the goddess or Diavolo themselves should punish those responsible. Hearing his true intentions, she becomes even more impressed, hugging him tighter while he smiles, slightly embarrassed. Now sitting in the Kingdom of Borgonia's waiting room, he worries whether the king will grant their request. Ilsa, calm and composed, gently suggests that he try not to worry. He grows embarrassed as Natalia leans very close to him, teasingly suggesting he taste the delicious cookies. She dismisses his hesitation, noting that no one is watching them at this moment. All the other girls sit in front of them, looking on with obvious annoyance at the pair. He glances helplessly at Ilsa, silently hoping she might rescue him, but she glares away angrily, leaving him even more worried. Ophelia, growing increasingly annoyed at having to wait, asks why they still haven't been called in. Clarisse offers to check on the matter, while Ludwig sits quietly, gloomily brooding over the situation. After a few minutes, a guard humbly bows and informs them that they are to enter the Hall of Mist. As they enter, King Dinis II of Borggonia greets them warmly, welcoming them all with evident happiness. Ludwig bows deeply, expressing sincere thanks for the honor and seriously informing the king that they have personally secured the dangerous stone dragon Monocore. He also explains that, due to a shortage of magic-absorbing stones, both the Empire and Bryn have been restraining the king's actions. Ophelia, still bowing respectfully, humbly interjects, advising the king to exercise caution for the sake of his citizens. Bowing, Ludwig knows it is not truly necessary. After all, they are requesting the king's own nation to be saved, and they have already gone far beyond their limits to remove the primary source of danger. Yet he bows anyway, doing it all for the Saintess, who worked tirelessly to protect them. Hearing their report, King Dinis calls Minister Ricardo, in charge of the army, to give his assessment. Ricardo steps forward with a bright, though clearly fake, smile, explaining that he has already investigated the matter. He claims the magic was caused by the Minerva Holy Church, with the Pope's faction and Saintess Natalia as the key players behind it. Ludwig and the others glare angrily at the minister, while Natalia looks worried and gloomy. Ricardo continues, feigning confidence, saying that the Empire purchased the dangerous mana from Maritime, the nation of Gabello, and secretly distributed it, using this as a cover for the true source and scope of the magic. Analytically, he notes that this is why the hideous orc and the Saintess are sitting together. Yet, with a sly, almost evil smile directed at Ophelia, he smirks at why the kingdom of Bryn is also helping them, provoking her anger at his bold, teasing demeanor. Before he can continue, King Dinis interrupts, pausing him. Thinking it over, he shares that since the main stone dragon mana has already been eliminated by Ludwig's party, they should not wait for the Empire or Bryn's magic-absorbing stones to save their own nation. In fact, he immediately orders the army to distribute all available absorbing stones to the infected citizens of their towns without wasting a second. Hearing this, Ludwig laughs with relief and joy, while the minister grinds his teeth in silent anger. Moving through the hallways outside, Ilsa feels exhilarated, her voice sparkling with delight as she talks about the success of their mission. Ludwig, too, feels a deep satisfaction, touched by King Dinis's genuine concern for his people. Ophelia, however, remains curious about the traitors. She quietly asks Clarice if the Cardinal's faction has admitted their guilt. Ludwig calmly explains that they have already secured the main magic stone. Moreover, the Gabello Maritime Kingdom, the supplier of the Dragonstone, is a close trade partner of the Empire and would quickly reveal the full network behind the plot if asked. Ilsa is deeply impressed by Ludwig's intelligence, leaving him slightly embarrassed and blushing. Relief spreads across everyone's faces as, following the king's orders, the magic-absorbing stones are distributed immediately, curing even the worst-affected patients. Walking outside, Ilsa continues to admire Ludwig for saving the town, but their relief turns to shock when Minister Ricardo arrives with his army, presenting a punishment decree that announces the Saintess is to be arrested for causing the town's troubles. The Saintess looks deeply gloomy, while the others stiffen in anger and disbelief, fuming quietly at the injustice. Under the minister's orders, the army moves forward to arrest the Saintess. Ludwig immediately steps in to shield her, placing himself between her and the soldiers, his sword ready to defend her. Ricardo smirks wickedly, questioning whether Ludwig dares go against the king, and warns that they intend to arrest the Saintess and the entire group, claiming that once the evidence is presented, even the king will be forced to judge them harshly. Seeing Battista and Marco among the army, Ludwig immediately realizes that Ricardo and the Cardinal faction are working together. Acting swiftly, he orders Clarice and Ilsa to escort Natalia safely back to King Dinis, while he and Ophelia prepare to confront the army directly. Though Ilsa hesitates, she follows his instructions and safely guides Natalia away. Ludwig reassures her not to worry. He has Ophelia with him, and both are skilled fighters. As the army advances, Ophelia leaps forward, striking down like a stormbreaker, surprising Ludwig. Noticing him momentarily distracted, she shouts a warning. Battista is attacking. Ludwig immediately defends himself as Battista rages, blaming him for everything and insisting the Saintess must be punished. He shouts back in anger but stumbles, and Ophelia glances at him in concern. Then Marco suddenly appears, pushing Ludwig and Ophelia aside, and striking Battista with a swift blow, a clever smile on his face as he turns the tide of the fight. Battista shouts furiously at Ludwig, but he strikes him down, accusing him as the cause of the chaos. Ophelia, still confused, watches as Ludwig, smiling, questions whether Marco has been on their side all along. He now realizes that, despite appearing careless, Marco's true goal was to protect the Saintess and remove every obstacle in her path, even using the stone as a diversion. Ricardo, enraged, lashes out at Marco for his perceived betrayal, warning Ludwig that they could still be arrested despite Marco's assistance. Ludwig is shocked when Ilsa suddenly approaches, informing him that reinforcements have arrived. Standing imposingly, the Pope of the Minerva Holy Church, Agriete Menzione, enters. Greeting Ludwig warmly, already aware of the entire situation, she turns to Minister Ricardo, excusing Natalia and exposing the false accusations against her. Approaching calmly, the Pope whispers to Ludwig about the evidence she has collected proving Natalia's innocence. She also warns him of the consequences for those who orchestrated the scheme, signaling that punishment will follow. The Pope then turns to Ludwig, humbly sharing how Natalia often speaks of him, while excusing that catching the culprits takes time. Guards hold Cardinal Lorenzo with ropes, and Agriette, smiling calmly, urges him to explain everything. Receiving no response, she teases that he must be too ashamed to confess, then subtly reveals on his behalf that he purchased the dragon's core from the Belga kingdom. Ludwig, shocked to learn this connection to his hometown, realizes Lorenzo may also be involved. He grows shocked when King Dinas interrupts, asking to explain their connections. Ludwig realizes the king must also have arrived with Agriette. The king, looking down gloomily, reflects on his mother, who was originally a royal from Belga, and how many nobles, including Ricardo, supported her. With calm authority, Pope explains further, revealing letters from Lorenzo's estate that show his close ties with Ricardo. Hearing the full story, he panics and attempts to manipulate the king, blaming the Minerva Holy Church for everything. But King Dinas, refusing to listen to excuses, angrily shouts at Ricardo for causing so much trouble for his people and orders his immediate arrest and escort to the capital. Ludwig urges Batista to confess. She only screams louder, cursing the saintess, and swings the glass bottle in blind rage. The bottle shatters against the head of a sudden one-eyed monster behind him. The huge creature topples, pinning Batista beneath it. Black veins flood his skin. His body twists and bursts outward, becoming a gigantic roper in seconds. He yells for everyone to stay back. The monster's tail lashes wildly. Ophelia, pale with shock, asks what it is. Ludwig answers, an evil roper, melts clothes, breathes lust, a dungeon terror. The Pope and Saintess Natalia see its size and know this will be nearly impossible to kill. Ludwig orders the crowd back again and charges in with Marco, swords slashing the thick tail. More tentacles shoot toward the Pope and Natalia. Ophelia rushes forward despite orders, blade flashing, and cuts the deadly limbs away to shield them. He shouts for her to retreat, but it's too late. The tentacles lash out, wrapping tightly around her hands and entire body. Seeing this, Ilsa springs into action, slashing with both knives to free Ophelia from the monster's grip. Ludwig, realizing the danger, shouts warnings as the monster immediately lashes again, ensnaring Ilsa from all sides. It squeezes her so tightly that she struggles to breathe, and he grows frantic, desperate to find a way to save her. Seeing Ilsa tightly bound and in danger, he panics, determined not to let the evil monster kill her. He dashes forward, slashing through all the tentacles ensnaring her. Once free, Ilsa shouts a warning, but another tentacle lashes toward Ludwig's shoulder. As he looks, his eyes widen in shock. It's too late. The monstrous roper envelops him completely, concealing him from view. Inside the monster, Ludwig feels exhausted, though he can still move his sword-wielding arm. Realizing the ropes cannot harm him, he quickly understands they are guiding him toward the monster's main body, Batista, without noticing that he still holds a weapon. As he approaches, a massive eyeball of the roper presses against his chest. Without thinking, Ludwig strikes directly into the eye. The impact unleashes a tremendous blast, instantly obliterating the monster and causing it to vanish entirely. Falling to the ground, he feels deeply honored to have been trained by Ilsa, realizing her guidance is what kept him unharmed. Batista, exhausted and near death, struggles beneath the remains of the monster's rope-like appendages. Ilsa, worried, rushes to him, scolding him for his reckless actions before hugging him tightly. Ludwig smiles, wanting to reassure her, but notices with embarrassment that her clothes are dangerously disheveled and her body nearly exposed. Flushed, Ilsa quickly dashes away, deeply embarrassed by the close encounter. He begins informing everyone about the return schedule, but he freezes, shocked, when he notices each girl looking at him with curiosity. Glancing downward, he realizes with embarrassment that his clothes are mostly ruined from contact with the evil slime. He shouts in mortification, and Ophelia yells at him not to expose himself. The other saintesses, cheeks flushed red, watch him with a mix of awe and surprise. Marco hands him some spare clothes, a small gesture that impresses Ludwig, acknowledging his effort as they come closer. After the chaos settles, Saintess Natalia, blushing and wearing a polite smile, thanks him sincerely for all his help. Weeks have passed since the petrification incident, and the townspeople are slowly recovering, their smiles returning. Minister Ricardo has been killed, and his family exiled. During a meal, Ludwig happily appreciates everyone working hard during these difficult times. Ophelia, smiling, suggests they drop the formalities. They are comrades after all. Ilse, frowning angrily, asks Natalia for her thoughts. Natalia, holding Ludwig tightly, almost leaning against him, agrees. But Ilse's stern glare warns her to maintain proper distance as a comrade. Natalia merely smiles and dismisses the warning. Seeing the tension, Ludwig happily suggests everyone relax. He gently tells Clarice not to call him Highness, reminding them that they are all students at the academy. Clarice humbly smiles, and Marco, slightly embarrassed, nods in agreement. As time passes, Ludwig finally feels calm and relieved, grateful that the monster Roper Batista never returned. Natalia now suggests to Ludwig that, although he lacks complete details about the evil Roper, he shouldn't worry. Ludwig smiles calmly, knowing that the monster was sold by merchants from the Gabelo Maritime Kingdom. Their conversation is interrupted when Ophelia excitedly declares that it's time to resume training together. Ilse, furious at the sudden announcement, shouts at everyone to immediately start preparing for the finals. Ludwig, recalling his previous life at the academy, remembers that a swimsuit event is scheduled after the finals, adding a wry layer of humor to the tense moment. Seeing the two girls arguing over training versus studying, Ludwig realizes that if the main heroes fail the exams, they won't be allowed to participate in the swimsuit event. He immediately agrees with Ilse that studying comes first. Suddenly, the Saintess leans toward Ludwig, whispering that she wants him as her study partner, since he's smarter. Ilse, angry, jabs her knife into her burger, warning that the exam is practical and could physically harm students. Ludwig grows more worried. Partners were assigned the day before, a stressful rule for antisocial students. Still, everyone must comply, as lower-status students cannot refuse higher-status ones, preventing grade manipulation. While eating, Ludwig broods, anxious that his reputation as an ugly orc might make him unpopular and a target for betrayal during the match. Suddenly, he hears teasing and scolding, fearing it's aimed at him. He looks over, but realizes it's directed at someone else, and finally relaxes. He notices a young student with teary eyes carrying his lunch plate toward another table. Hesitating at first, Ludwig stops the boy and kindly invites him to sit with them. Seeing the boy's shocked expression, Ludwig panics, thinking that no one would want to sit with him because of his reputation as a hideous orc. But the boy humbly declines, saying it would be an honor to sit with Princess Ophelia and Saintess Natalia. Overjoyed, Ludwig offers him a seat again, assuring him it's fine if he has no trouble. Everyone happily agrees, and the boy joins them. After the boy sits down, everyone introduces themselves, but he stays silent, unable to assert himself. Ophelia gently encourages him, but seeing his nervous, almost frightened expression, Ludwig smiles and decides not to pressure him, sensing he needs time. At last, the boy speaks haltingly, introducing himself as Gilberto Ilmgard Gabelo from the Gabelo Maritime Kingdom. Ludwig immediately recognizes him as the merchant from Gabelo who supplied various items to players, everything from the stone dragon core to the evil Roper. He also recalls that the Balderbelk Empire maintains only a diplomatic relationship with Gabelo, giving context to the political tension. Gilberto's expression darkens as he mentions his country is indebted to the Balderbelk Empire. Ludwig remains quiet, but Ophelia explodes in anger, accusing the nation of supplying poisons, narcotics, and weapons that harm smaller countries. Natalia also reprimands them for being reckless merchants. Hearing this, Ludwig steps in to defend Gilberto, explaining that the wrongdoing is not his fault. Still, the heated atmosphere becomes too much for the boy, and he slips away quietly. Seeing Gilberto leave with a gloomy face and teary eyes, Ludwig instinctively stands, saying that, as a hideous orc, he should also leave them all. Ilse looks at him with a humble smile, while Ophelia and Saintess Natalia quickly apologize for their rude behavior toward Gilberto. Sitting back down, he feels relief, but is stunned when Gilberto, still crying, thanks him for standing up for him. Watching Ludwig's kindness, Ilse smiles warmly, touched by his gentle nature. A week later, in the student common hall, Ophelia excitedly suggests that Ludwig train at night. Clarice immediately interrupts, shouting that he cannot. His grades are low, and with only a week before exams, he needs to study. He already practices swordplay every morning, after all. He is moved by her concern. Suddenly, Gilberto arrives with a book and enthusiastically offers to help Ludwig study. He and Ilse are both surprised. While having him tutor Ludwig sounds useful, the others seem doubtful. Gilberto insists that his knowledge of question trends makes him the best choice. Ilse angrily objects, saying she alone is enough to guide Ludwig. As the two argue, Clarice calls Ludwig over to help her with a question, and he agrees at once. Seeing this, Natalia feels impressed by his talent, capable both academically and in battle. Taking his hands playfully, she asks him to help her too, since Clarice has already received his attention. Everyone is shocked when Gilberto suddenly shouts that Natalia doesn't need help, since she's a top student. When she teases him for interfering, he yells that he won't allow any suspicious person near Ludwig. Hearing this aimed at Natalia, he smiles in embarrassment, quietly amused. After a while, he sincerely thanks Gilberto for explaining each question so clearly, genuinely impressed by his guidance. While stretching, Ophelia asks if he's as skilled in combat as he is in studying, noting his slim, almost fragile appearance. Everyone is stunned when he smiles teasingly and says he wields a weapon so strong that opponents might forfeit before the fight begins. He adds that his father gave him the Durandal, ensuring he would never be defeated in the Empire. Ludwig then offers to spar with him sometime, though he dismisses the idea with an embarrassed smile. He is also surprised to learn that the King of Gabalo entrusted him with such a powerful weapon, realizing in that moment the deep love a parent can have for their child. Changing the topic, Ludwig asks Ilsa about her studies, but seeing her confused expression, he tries to help with what should be basic questions. Noticing her notebook is erased and crumpled, he grows suspicious. Still, he patiently guides her, and she happily thanks him for his help. That night, he thanks Ilsa for taking the time to teach him during their fight practice. Performing her duty, she holds her fur knives in hand and suggests they practice real combat techniques, ensuring he gains experience beyond mere training exercises. Hinking about the practical part of the exam, Ilsa trains him thoroughly, ensuring that if he is paired with anyone else, it will not be difficult for him. After practicing for a while, Ludwig suggests taking a short break, feeling he deserves a moment to rest while staying ready for any unexpected turn. After all, the rigorous Imperial Academy isn't part of the original game plot, and anything could happen. Exhaling deeply, Ludwig sadly expresses his wish to be paired with Ilsa for the exams. She responds gloomily that Ophelia and Natalia are also excellent partners, Ophelia with her strong combat abilities and Natalia with her powerful magic. Clarice and Marco are strong contenders as well, and even Gilberto could be an option. Yet Ludwig happily adds that he still wants to be paired with Ilsa as he feels more comfortable with her. The admission leaves him blushing and flustered. Then, looking into her eyes, he suggests having a picnic together somewhere after the exams, and she happily agrees, her smile brightening the moment. On the day of the written exams, he eagerly asks about the questions. Ophelia looks frustrated, standing beside Natalia and Clarice, who missed the last problem. Ludwig, happily explaining that he solved all the problems correctly, impresses everyone. Still annoyed, Ophelia warns that she will take out all her frustration during the practical exam. Ludwig, wearing a teasing smile, gently suggests she remain polite, earning a small glare but softening the tension slightly. Suddenly, everyone is shocked when Ophelia accidentally strikes a girl, causing her to collapse to the ground. She immediately apologizes, but Ludwig, looking at the girl's features, instantly recognizes her as Karen Rosard, the first princess of the Estonia Magic Kingdom. Bowing humbly, he offers her a helping hand, aware that she is a renowned heroine with powerful magic and a cold, distant demeanor. Just then, a boy shouts toward her, and Karen, startled and furious, immediately dashes away, leaving a tense silence in her wake. As she leaves, Natalia, visibly angry, explains to the group that the girl is the first princess of the Estonia Magic Kingdom. She warns that Karen is involved in illegal enhancement drugs, using the name of magic to cover her schemes. Natalia stresses the danger posed by this powerful nation and advises everyone to be cautious around her and her twin brother, Sergio. While Ophelia suggests not judging anyone solely based on their illicit activities, as they had initially done with Gilberto, Natalia angrily dismisses her, insisting that this case is entirely different. Everyone becomes curious when Gilberto eagerly approaches, asking if anyone will accompany him to the cafeteria with Ludwig. Ilsa, suspicious of the girl with him, frowns, but Gilberto calmly explains that she is his attendant, Arina, whom his father instructed him to bring. Looking at her, Ludwig notices she resembles Ilsa's aura. He gently pushes Arina aside, insisting that she not follow him around constantly. As Arina leaves, Ludwig whispers a question about some equipment, and Gilberto happily nods, assuring him he can take it since he has no use for it now. Prince gratefully thanks him. Seeing Natalia looking worried, Marco asks her about it. Although she is thinking of Sergio and Karen, Dennis dismisses it as just her overthinking. Then the pairings for the practical exams are announced. Ludwig silently prays to be paired with Ilsa, while Gilberto whispers that he wants to be paired with Ludwig. Ophelia, confident in her own abilities, is the only one unconcerned, trusting fully in her powers. Ludwig is shocked to hear that Ilsa is paired with Natalia, as they do not seem like a natural team. The other pairings are announced, and the entire class learns who they will face. Ludwig waits anxiously for his own turn, and when he is finally paired, he realizes his partner is Karen Rosard from Estania, which makes him nervous. The first match begins between Ilsa and Natalia versus Bernd and Maria. While cheering them on, Ludwig quietly informs Karen about their next match. Noticing her cold, indifferent reaction, he feels a flush of embarrassment. Seeing Natalia and especially Ilsa waving at him, Ludwig smiles affectionately. Ilsa always feels like a relaxing dose of calm amidst his nerves. The first match begins, and Ilsa moves with such speed that she sweeps past their opponents before he even realizes it. By the time she arrives at his side, he is both impressed and slightly breathless from her dazzling performance. During the fight, one of the opposing girls unleashes a wind cutter. Natalia immediately counters with her magic, striking the girl and causing her to collapse from serious wounds. Meanwhile, Ilsa confronts her male opponent, pressing her knife near his neck with anger and determination. Seeing all this, Ludwig is deeply impressed. When the girls return, they both ask about his impressions. He openly admires Ilsa's skill, making her blush, but he also praises Natalia for perfectly using reflection magic against her opponent at the right moment, leaving Natalia both flustered and happy. Ilsa, however, feels a pang of jealousy at the attention Natalia receives. Then their own turn is announced, and Ludwig wants to hurry forward, but Karen, without saying a word, moves first, stepping confidently onto the battlefield and holding him slightly from behind. Natalia, ever vigilant, quickly reminds him to stay alert and be cautious of Karen's unpredictable movements. As the match begins, the opponents exude overconfidence, certain of their victory against this hideous loser orc. Hearing this makes him flush with embarrassment. Everyone is shocked when, without waiting a moment, Karen unleashes her fireball magic, igniting the battlefield. The opponents are immediately engulfed in flames and fall to the scorched ground. Ludwig, standing on the sidelines, is stunned by her aggressive attack. The teacher rushes in to neutralize the magic and calls for the medical camp. Seeing all the students staring at him, silently blaming him for the chaos, Ludwig feels a wave of frustration and dismay. Ilsa approaches, excitedly praising their fighting. Noticing the shield in his hands, he explains that he bought it from Gilberto in exchange for a favor, a small shield designed by his father, the king, originally made for Gilberto, but also suitable for him. He smiles awkwardly, admitting he hasn't had the chance to use it yet. Natalia relaxes slightly now that he's safe, though she stays alert and warns everyone not to underestimate Karen's magic again. After her fight, Ophelia is frustrated, having faced an opponent who wasn't very strong. Ludwig smiles and gently teases her, suggesting she pick a tougher opponent next time for more challenge. Ludwig worries silently about Karen, thinking of how the Estania Magic Kingdom treats her like a Magitech weapon rather than a princess. Her Magitech core allows her to enter status ailment overdrive, a state where she attacks everything around her. In the game, it lasts only 5 turns, but in reality, it could last much longer, so he must be extremely cautious as her partner. After a short break, the next match starts, and everyone cheers for Clarice and Marco. Ludwig, however, is stunned when he notices Sofia talking closely with Sergio, his attention immediately captured by their interaction.
Here I am.